All right, the April 20th session of Roanoke City Council 2 p.m. meeting is hereby called to order. And I will ask our clerk, Ms. Susie McCoy, to please call the roll.
Ms. Price? Ms. Price?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Yes, Ms. White Boyd?
Here.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Osborne?
Here.
And Mayor Lee?
Here, and the quorum is present. I want to note that the number of members present by electronic communication means and declare that a quorum is present as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708 A3. Pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708, Virginia Code Section 15.2-1413, and ordinance number 41-703-032720. The agenda items for this session of City Council involve matters to address the emergency created by the COVID-19 pandemic disaster. Today, I will do the invocation, and following the invocation, I will lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please bow your heads with me, if you would. Lord, we come to you this afternoon, first and foremost, to say thank you. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for watching over us and protecting us this week and down through the days that have been difficult. Thank you for blessing our families. And Lord, we ask you to continue to bless over our community in a mighty way. We pray at this time that you will continue to protect and strengthen our first responders, from fire and EMS to the doctors, the nurses, the police officers, those who work as clerks in the stores, and all of those people, Lord, that are out front in what we're doing, correctional officers in the facilities. We thank you for so much, and we ask your continued blessings on us as we go forth in this pandemic crises. And we ask you to guide us as we, as appointed and elected officials, do the business of our city. And we want to recognize you and give you praise, because your word says to trust in you with all our heart, and we're doing that now. Thank you, Lord. And we pray your guidance and your direction on us, and I pray that every member of this council and appointed officers and families are protected as we go through this pandemic. We give you praise, we give you glory. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the
of the
United
States of America
and to
the republic
for
for
which
which
it
it
stands,
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Thank you all. All right, welcome again. And this is our second council meeting through Zoom lens, and we thank everybody and thank everybody for their presence, and our attorney and our city manager and the clerk. They are present today, and all the other staff that are able to be there to work with us today. Today's council meeting will be televised live and replayed on RVTV Channel 3 on Thursday, April 23rd at 7 o'clock p.m. and Saturday, April the 25th at 4:00 p.m. and video stream through Facebook Live at facebook.com/Roanoke VA. Council meetings are offered and offered with closed captioning for the hearing impaired. All right, each member of council has access through the Zoom meeting platform and can participate in this proceeding. The city has provided the public with information to allow the public access to observe this regular session through live broadcast on RVTV, live streaming on Facebook, and posted on YouTube. The city has provided notice of this agenda and process to the public on Thursday, April the 16th, 2020. The city staff, including the city manager, city clerk, city attorney, and technical staff, are all present in the council chamber and are participating in this regular session. To facilitate the process today, to ensure that all council members and the public can follow these proceedings, I ask that whenever a member of council speaks, including making a motion, to first state the member's name and then make the motion or the second. At this time, I ask members whether they have any questions about this process. All right, and if there are none, I'll ask the city manager to advise that if he has any comments. I heard none. I think there are any comments. We'll go to item number 3, which is the presentations and acknowledgements. There are none. I'm at item number 2. Number 3 is the hearing of citizens upon public matters. City Council sets the time as a priority for citizens to be heard. All matters will be referred to the city manager for response, recommendation, or report to council as he may deem appropriate. All right. Based upon Executive Order 51 issued by Governor Northam on March 12, 2020, Executive Order 55 issued by Governor Northam on March 30th, 2020, Virginia Code Section 2.2-3708.2.2, Virginia Code Section 15.2-1413, Ordinance Number 41703-032720, and Resolution Number 41704-032720. City Council will be conducting this regular session of City Council by electronic communication means without a quorum of City Council physically present in council chamber and without the presence of members of the public in the council chambers. In order to afford citizens an opportunity to provide comments to City Council during the COVID-19 pandemic disaster, citizens wishing to address the council during this regular session of City Council conducted by electronic communication means were instructed to sign up by emailing or calling the city's clerk's office at clerk@roanokeva.gov and 540-853-2541 by 12 p.m. on April 20th, which is today. Those citizens who have signed up to speak before the council have been provided the Zoom meeting information and will be allowed to join the meeting and address City Council by electronic communication means. At this time, I will call on our City Clerk, Ms. Susan McCord, to advise us as to those who are ready to speak and acknowledge them.
We have 4 speakers today. Our first speaker is Stephen Ambrose.
Welcome. What's that last name again?
Ambrose, A-M-B-R-O-S-E. RUZS.
Okay. Welcome, sir. Welcome to City Council. Hello?
He should come shortly.
Hello?
Hello? Is this Mr. Ambrose?
If you're hearing me, this is Ken McLeod. I'm not Mr. Ambrose.
All right, yeah.
Just stand down.
I would be happy to speak if that works.
Hello,
That's
can you guys hear me
fine,
okay? I think I was muted for some reason. Can everybody hear me okay? This is Stephen Ambrose.
Yes, we hear you.
All right,
Okay,
go ahead, Mr. Ambrose.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think there were two slideshows. I think this is Mr. McLeod's slides. If we have the other set of slides, that would be helpful.
Mr. Ambrose, your slide should be on there. You're just going to have
Okay,
to
great. Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, members of council, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking the time for me to speak in front of you this afternoon. I just want to address the fact that I understand it's in the city's best interest and the city's idea is to keep all of its residents safe during this pandemic, and that was the motive behind the Greenway closures. And by no means are we advocating for a complete reopening of the Greenways at this point in time. What we have identified with the Greenway closures are two main components. The first is that the Greenways provide a vital transportation corridor, and the Greenways were built with transportation funding. And so our bike commuters within the city have a hard time getting from point A to point B with the full Greenway closure in place. For example, places like the Garden City Greenway and the Lick Run Greenway really lack alternative safe solutions for cyclists and pedestrians to get to and from those areas of the cities. And so that's a real problem for those residents. And the second is that the Greenways provide a much needed mental and physical health benefit to everybody during our stay-at-home order. There are dozens of peer-reviewed studies linking outdoor activity to a boosted immune system and improved mental and physical health. And that there currently have been no studies that prove viral transmissions outdoor via aerosols. So we created an online petition to garner support from our residents here in Roanoke, and we've collected approximately 195 signatures, mostly within the city of Roanoke. We have a map that overlays all of our point data for our citizens that submitted signatures to the Greenway petition. In addition to their name and address, we asked residents to submit their ideas for a plan to reopen our Greenways. And so we've collected four sort of top ideas from our residents here. The first is that the city provide education or increased signage with guidance and guidelines around social distances. The second is closing parking lots to avoid congestion. The third is to close the congested areas of the Greenway only, most notably along the river and Wiley Drive. And the fourth is to close neighborhood streets to vehicle traffic only and creating an open street plan. And I think the two main sort of topics that my colleague Ken and I would like to sort of discuss and approach with the city is a structured reopening plan, which is a combination of closing neighborhood streets to vehicle traffic and keeping certain segments of the Greenway closed that had the high use and overcrowding issues. And by doing this, it will allow our residents to recreate and travel safely while limiting congestion and improving access to areas with enough space for appropriate social distancing. And with that, I'll allow my colleague Ken to continue the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the council and the mayor for having us as well. And thank you, Steve, for that great summary of the outreach on these issues. I think what we're really interested in making sure that there's enough space for people to get out and get that outdoor recreation, that there isn't crowding. The goal is to avoid crowding. The goal is to ensure that there is that space for safe social distance. In this first slide are some images from Oakland, California, where they recently shut down 10% of their streets to through traffic to provide safe space for social distancing and outdoor recreation. You know, these are really simple adaptations using signs to partially close the street. I think that's the type of thing that we can implement in Roanoke, particularly around the crowded portions of the Greenway. If you look at counter data from the city of Roanoke, there really is much more traffic on the Roanoke River Greenway near Carillion and Wiley Drive. So focusing on adapting spaces around that area to provide more space, potentially by closing Wiley Drive to through traffic, potentially by closing a place like Hamilton Terrace, which is parallel to the Greenway, and providing signs that route people on bikes or people walking to those alternative routes, so you're giving more space and giving alternatives to people. That's the type of adaptation that we'd like to see and think would be a smart way to reopen the Greenway. Closing parking will lessen that demand for the Greenway, lessen the amount of people who can congregate there. I think that needs to be balanced by allowing people to have safe spaces near their homes, because we know that many people only feel safe on the Greenway in terms of biking and walking. Many people don't feel safe on streets. But hopefully these slides provide some ideas about how we might be able to take a management approach to the Greenway rather than just closing it outright and closing all paved parts of the Greenway. And then, I think these are some ideas that you can consider in terms of improving wayfinding, slowing traffic at that intersection at Walnut and Piedmont Street, just making it easier for people to use adjacent streets for biking and walking, really expanding that space for biking and walking. I think that's one of the best ways to make sure that people have spaces, by expanding space that's safe for them. And so moving forward, as we get into the summer, as more people are outside, I think having some pop-up trails on streets located throughout Roanoke, maybe places that don't have access to parks, is something the city should consider. So that, again, we're lessening the chance of congestion on the greenways to manage the greenways instead of just closing them. And thank you again to the council and the mayor for having us today.
All right, thank you both for your presentations. And we're going to forward this to our city manager so that he can respond to you in terms of where we are with regards to the Greenway and the suggestions that you offer. All right, thank you both.
Hello?
Okay, Mayor, our next speaker is Kelly Clinton.
You're
Hello?
breaking up on me.
Can you hear me?
I
I'm
can hear you.
addressing you today. I'm addressing you today about not reopening the Greenway. I am a nurse. I'm a healthcare provider. My practice has changed greatly since the COVID-19 pandemic began. Healthcare professionals wear heavy masks, gloves, and gowns when personal protective equipment is available. We eat and we drink less frequently. We worry constantly about our patients, ourselves, and taking this virus home to our families. We are not heroes. We are people, individuals who carry a higher risk for exposure, but are putting ourselves on the front line every day as this virus spreads. Why are our lives less valuable than the people who are inconvenienced by a closed Greenway? Our society has already proved they are unable to practice self-distancing on the Greenway. I am pleading as one of the many healthcare professionals who are at risk and also living inconvenience to keep the Greenway closed at this time. Yes, I am a nurse, but I'm not a hero. And now my husband would like to share.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. My name is William Cliff, and I want to thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to address you. As a citizen of Roanoke, I too have enjoyed the opportunity to utilize our Greenway. Though its closure is hardly my greatest concern at these times, I am quite envious of those who feel it is theirs. I fully support the Council's adoption of emergency ordinances in order to limit the transmission of the coronavirus, which includes the temporary closure of the Greenway, thus enforcing social distancing. The effects of which can be seen by the fact that Virginia has not reached its projected COVID-19 cases, and given the latest numbers, is possibly contributing to a possible flattening of the curve. I believe any relaxation on social distancing measures would negate any gains we have achieved in preventing new cases. As a healthcare provider who has direct contact with COVID patients, I support any measure that continues to limit the spread of the disease and would encourage the council to keep the Greenway closed at least until the end of the month. Anything else would be foolhardy and irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anders Cliff. Madam Clerk, are there any more?
No more speakers today. No more citizens to speak, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, there's no other speakers to speak today.
Oh, there are no other speakers. Okay.
No other speakers.
Okay, thank you. All right, we now will go down to item 4, which is the consent agenda. We have no consent agenda today. And our regular agenda, item number 5 is public hearings. We have none. Item number 6 is petitions and communications. We have none. And reports of the city officers and comments of the city manager. Briefings, we have none. So we're going to go right into items recommended for action. Item number 1 is recognition of the Western Virginia Workforce Development Board Rapid Response COVID-19 Business Support Funds for award period March 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2020. There's a resolution.
Move the resolution.
All right, who made that motion?
Trish White Boyd, I'm sorry.
All right, I need a second.
Michelle Davis, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution acknowledging and recognizing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Grant, rapid response funding from the Virginia Community College System in the amount of $57,452 for the COVID-19 Business Support Initiative for the award period of March 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2020. The foregoing funding to be administered by the Western Virginia Workforce Development Board.
All right, and there any questions or comments by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the resolution passes and the vote is unanimous here. All right, item number 2 is the acceptance of the 2019 Continuum of Care grant funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to support the city's homeless assistance team. We got 2 measures. First one is a resolution.
Vice Mayor Cobb, I move the resolution.
Anita Price, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution authorizing acceptance of the FY 2019 Continuum of Care Grant Award to the City of Roanoke from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $140,422 upon certain terms and conditions, authorizing the City of Roanoke to be the fiscal agent for the distribution of grant proceeds, authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documents necessary to accept such funding, and determining that an emergency exists, and this resolution shall be effective upon passage.
All right, are there any comments or questions by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Osborne,
Aye.
and Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the vote is unanimous and the resolution passes. Thank you. We now have a budget ordinance.
Juna Osborne moved the budget ordinance.
Ms. White Boyd, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Homeless Assistance Team Grant, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2019-2020 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, any questions or comments from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Osborne,
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the budget ordinance is unanimously approved and passes. Thank you. Item number 3 is the acceptance of the 2019 Continuum of Care Grant Funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to support the coordinated assessment system. There are 2 measures here, beginning with the resolution.
Vice Mayor Cobb, I move the resolution.
Bill Bestfitch, I second.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the title paragraph?
A resolution authorizing acceptance of the FY 2019 Continuum of Care Grant Award to the City of Roanoke from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $49,070 upon certain terms and conditions, authorizing the City of Roanoke to be the fiscal agent for the distribution of grant proceeds, authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documents necessary to accept such funding, and determining that an emergency exists, and this resolution shall be effective upon passage.
All right, any questions or comments from members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price? Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the resolution passes with a unanimous vote. All right, there is a budget ordinance.
Ms. White Boyd, move the ordinance.
Bill Bestfitch, second.
Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Continuum of Care Coordinated Assessment System grant, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2019-2020 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, are there any questions by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Osborne,
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the vote is unanimous and the budget ordinance passes. Thank you. The next item is the acceptance of the 2019 Continuum of Care Grant Award from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and a Council of Community Service cash match to support continuum of care. There are two measures again. One is a resolution.
Bill Bestfitch moved the resolution.
Michelle Davis.
Anita Price, second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution authorizing acceptance of the FY 2019 Continuum of Care Planning Grant to the City of Roanoke from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $45,235 upon certain terms and conditions, authorizing the City of Roanoke to be the fiscal agent for the distribution of the grant proceeds, authorizing the city manager to execute any necessary documents necessary to accept such funding, and determining that an emergency exists and this resolution shall be effective upon passage.
All right, are there any questions or comments from members of council? All right, hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Osborne,
Aye.
Mayor Lee.
Aye. And the vote is unanimous and the resolution passes. There is a budget ordinance.
Gina Osborne moved the budget ordinance.
Michelle Davis, second.
Madam Clerk, can you read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Continuum of Care Planning Grant, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2019-2020 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right. Any comments or questions by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Ms. Price,
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd,
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch, Mr. Bestfitch. Yes, he's muted, and I believe he said aye.
I'm sorry, I said aye. I'm sorry.
All right. Vice Mayor Cobb,
Aye.
Ms. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Osborne,
Aye.
and Mayor Lee.
Aye, and the vote is unanimous and the resolution passes. All right, we have a budget ordinance.
Ms. White Boyd moved the ordinance.
Gina
Vice
Osborne,
Mayor,
second.
go ahead.
Do we get a second?
Gina.
Gina Osborne, second. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, Madam Clerk, please read the title paragraph.
A resolution adopting and approving amendment number 2 to the City of Roanoke's 2015 through 2019 Consolidated Plan to provide for the use of such grant funding, authorizing the acceptance of emergency solutions grant funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $298,507 to be used by the city to combat the community effects of COVID-19, authorizing the city manager or the city manager's designee to submit amendment number 2 to HUD for final review and approval, authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents required to accept such funding, and determining that an emergency exists and this resolution shall be effective upon passage.
All right, any comments by members of council? Let me ask our city manager if he could just speak to this a few moments to let those that are watching, the public watching, what we're actually doing here, what the city is doing.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is the first really item that we've seen that comes from the federal government for the financial assistance that's coming as a result of the response to the COVID incidents. And so we're moving faster on this one than what we'll be moving on some of the other CDBG items. And the reason is because obviously this one is geared toward those that might be either homeless or facing homelessness. And so the timeliness of this one is more significant. This combined with some other funding is in part what we're doing or using in order to be able to house homeless individuals should they need to self-isolate as a result of awaiting test results associated with COVID. So this is just, again, the first step we'll be doing later, probably in May and June. We'll be taking some additional steps tied to the CDBG awards that have been provided to us as well as a result of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions by members of council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the vote is unanimous, and the budget ordinance passes.
It's a resolution. It's a resolution. Now we go to the budget ordinance, Mayor. The past was a resolution. Now we're on the budget ordinance.
Bill Best, second. I move the budget ordinance.
Okay.
Well, we got a.
Ms. Bestfitch, you second. Who first? Who made the first motion?
I think I made the motion,
Okay,
and I think Ms. Price made the second.
thank you.
Madam Clerk, could you read the title paragraph?
An ordinance to appropriate funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Emergency Solutions Grant, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, amending and reordaining certain sections of the 2019-2020 grant fund appropriations, and dispensing with the second reading by title of this ordinance.
All right, is there any questions by members of council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Cobb, did you have?
I was just going to express my thanks to our homeless services department, the HAT team, all of the shelter programs, and particularly Trust House for their extraordinary efforts in providing dedicated shelter in this emergency, and all of the services that they continue to provide. So I just wanted to thank them all for all they're doing.
All right, any other comments from members of council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Ms. White Boyd?
Aye.
Mr. Bestfitch?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cobb?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Ms. Osborne?
Aye.
And Mayor Lee?
Aye. And the vote is unanimous, and the budget ordinance passes. All right, we're now down to comments of the city manager, and I'm pleased to recognize Mr. Cowell for any comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a few items, some cases to remind you of and other cases to make announcements regarding. As you all know, the city of Roanoke recently participated in the Light It Blue campaign, which is an international campaign where buildings and monuments are lit in blue to show support for essential workers during the response to COVID-19. In conjunction with Carillion Clinic, Poe and Kronk, and the owners of the Wells Fargo Tower, The city thanked folks here locally by lighting the Roanoke Star, the Berglund Center, and the Wells Fargo Tower blue last week. This has obviously been very well received in the community, and we actually today, in coordination with those same partners and others that have expressed an interest, we are actually going to extend the time that the star will remain blue through the end of the month. There are others that have wished to join in and with that recognition, so we want to go ahead and take that opportunity to honor that as well. So the star will remain blue and white through the end of the month with that. As a part of that effort, also on Thursday of last week, hospital workers both at Lewis Gale as well as at Carilion Clinic received special recognition honoring them for the work that they're doing. And I want to thank the fire, EMS, and law enforcement personnel from throughout the region for what they did in that honor and recognition that they were able to do. The event was recorded by the city and is available on the city's Facebook page for those that have not already seen it. And there has actually been approaching 100,000 views of that. So one of the most significant posts that we've had in a long time. And again, want to thank folks for the work that they did to make that happen as well. A little bit different item in that the city treasurer's office wanted to announce that they have recently made available online licensing for dogs. This is using the pet data website. This is a process that we had in place prior to all of the closures that we've had, but even perhaps more important now that the closures are in place. So this will enable dog owners to register multiple dogs at the same time and easily uploading the required documents, thereby not requiring a visit to the treasurer's office any longer to make that trip possible. Payments can also be made online as well. Additional information regarding this new service can be found at the treasurer's website on the city's webpage. And the final item I have is to remind folks that the deadline for business and personal property tax has been extended by 1 month. As noted on the bill, those taxes are now due June 30th. And of course, the treasurer's office continues to work with those that may have been delinquent in their real estate tax payments to arrange a payment plan or other actions that are necessary with it as well. So those are my updates for right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of those that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the city manager? All right, hearing none, we'll go down to item number 11, motion and miscellaneous businesses. And any inquiries by the mayor or members of city council? Yes, Ms. Osborne.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lee. I just wanted to make one comment. As many of us are being sequestered at home and probably recognizing that we have maybe far too many things in our possession and that we'd like to do some spring cleaning. I've certainly been one of those people. And I noticed that the Goodwill is still accepting donations, even though the retail locations are closed. And so they have modified hours. So if it's a store location that has a drop off, their hours are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Sunday from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. The standalone locations are will be staffed Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And they have a note that if someone is not there at that time, you can leave items, but it's recommended that you take them back with you and bring them back another time. I just know that some people were doing yard sales, and I know that spring cleaning, especially when you're home surrounded by all of your belongings, you may feel an urge to get rid of some things, and it certainly does benefit the Goodwill. They can still use those donations to turn into profit or into funds to fund their services, that they're still operating some of their virtual support services. So just a little note.
Okay, thank you. At this time, Ms. Cowell or Mr. Callahan, do you all want to have a letter that we have that every council member should have now that talks about state and federal support needed to advance testing and contact tracing to continue to address COVID-19 and the reopening of the economy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, earlier, I believe it was last week, the mayor and the vice mayor approached myself and the city attorney It was actually, I think, just maybe a day or two prior to the release of the guidance out of the White House, and certainly then subsequent to it, with an interest in being able to formulate some type of letter that could move forward under the mayor's signature that really does two things. One, it corresponds with and supports the guidance that has been provided by the White House relative to what is necessary to begin reopening activities within the various states, and in this case, of course, in Virginia, as well as in Roanoke. And it stresses the significance and importance of testing and contact tracing as an element of that as well. So that letter has been prepared, it has been reviewed and approved by the city attorney, as well as has been reviewed by both the mayor and the vice mayor for consistency with what they were seeking to do. Of course, as you know, the governor will obviously make the decision in Virginia as to when it is time to release the order that affects the stay at home. However, I think that the mayor and vice mayor, and certainly I concur, felt it important that locally we make a statement about the significance of testing as well as contact tracing in that role. And so that's what the letter does. The letter will be distributed to the vice president as the chair of the task force on COVID, as well as our local representatives within Congress, as well as within the General Assembly here in Virginia. So that's what you have. And ultimately, if you're comfortable with that letter, what we would be requesting is that you all authorize the mayor to place the signature upon the letter, and that letter be forwarded to those individuals as noted. So be happy to answer any questions about the letter, or certainly if the mayor or vice mayor wish to add any further explanation as to the basis for the request or what might itself be in the letter.
I think it's a good letter. I think it's, you know, as noted, it'll be going out to all our representatives in the region. And I think given where we are right now in testing and contact tracing, it's appropriate. I tell you, just keep getting mixed messages from the federal government. I mean, you know, we're trying to do this. We need testing, I think, and we need to contact people once they've been involved or have been someone in the family or what have you have been infected. But I don't know, I just seem to get good mixed messages. I think this is an appropriate letter that will address what we need, and we do need help from state and the federal government. I'm hoping that our governor will continue to pursue this. Do you want to read it for the public, or is it are we okay with it as it is?
Yeah, I think we would simply make it available for public inspection rather than reading through the entire letter, unless there's any questions about anything specifically in the letter.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
This Vice Mayor Cobb. Just wanted to concur with what you just said, and I think what many of us are experiencing, that in our desire to eventually take the steps necessary to reopen not only government but economy and all of the aspects to that, following the appropriate guidelines, we realize that in order to do that, we need to have access to testing. The testing is very limited in our area. While we see testing numbers going up throughout Virginia, these are tests of symptoms, people that are carrying symptoms. The number of people being tested that are asymptomatic is very low at this point. And based on information from Dr. Molly Odell and our local health district, this is one of the greatest concerns. And so we felt like this letter was our ability to say and to affirm the necessity of getting increased testing to our area, as well as contact tracing. So I don't know if it's appropriate, but I would like to move that we authorize the mayor to sign this letter and send it to our federal and state officials.
So best Pigeon, I would second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we send this to the appropriate people as outlined in the letter.
Yeah, Mayor, we can, if you would like, just to affirm that with all the other members, if you could just do a voice vote, that would then conform and allow everyone to have their say in whether they feel comfortable moving this forward.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, let it be known. Or if you have any comments or thoughts on that, please make that known also. But if all those are in favor of us forwarding the letter, please let it be known by the saying of aye.
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 All right, all those opposed? All right, it looks like, I think everybody I knew. Anita, I saw your lips move, so I'm assuming you said.
I hate this. I am so sorry.
No, I'm sure. I'm just kidding you. That's what happened. But thank you all. We'll go ahead and forward that. And, you know, while we're on this subject, I just want to comment that I'm just concerned once we start testing, and I hope we do, in some of the vulnerable populations in our city. I think there may be some increase in the numbers, but I think we need to do that as soon as we can. And I'm hoping that, again, that the federal government, president and his task force will follow through and getting the supplies out to the states so that they can do what needs to be done. Thank you all for your support, and let's just keep staying together on this and making sure we're doing what we need to do. Thanks a lot. All right, any other thing on motions and miscellaneous business?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
This is Vice Mayor Cobb. I wondered, and I apologize, I probably should have asked this earlier, but since we're talking about down the road reopening strategies, I wonder if our city manager could talk a little bit about some internal working groups that are being formulated to help us look at when we do eventually reopen government and economy, some of the work that's going on right now, just so our citizens are aware that we are working diligently on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, now I'll go ahead and provide you a little bit of overview, and some of this will start making a little bit more well-known as it gets kind of firmed up and stuff. But as I included in your update, we have a couple of different working groups internally, and they're focused. Obviously, we continue to put most of our energy and most of our attention on the immediacy of dealing with the virus as it exists right now. However, we do know that at some point, the economy will be reopened and our municipal facilities will be reopened as well. And so we have one working group that's working out of our emergency operations group that's focused on what it's going to take for us to reopen our municipal facilities. And that includes looking at any type of physical change that might be necessary in order to actually maintain physical distancing or create some sort of separation between workers and employees and so on, and workers and customers and those types of things. It will also be looking at, there may be some services that we continue to offer remotely or via online or something along those lines instead of in person. So that's one working group that's focused really on that side of the equation. There's another working group that is beginning to assess what funding might exist out there that is available not only for us as a local government, but also for small businesses, as well as for what I'll refer to as kind of the vulnerable populations. You saw some of that action today tied with the homeless as well. So that group will be looking, though, not only at resources out of the federal government, but also private resources out of the philanthropic side as well, that we might be able to either go pursue ourselves or make one of our other community partners available to be able to do. And then the third group really is focused on trying to assess, and this one will probably have the longest sort of tenure. They're trying to assess how the economy turns back on, if you will, and what exactly the pace is of that. And that will be focused on trying to understand what's happening here locally to complement what we might hear about at a national level. So those are just three of the working groups, and we're beginning to formulate partnerships with outside entities elsewhere in the region that will assist in those efforts as well. And again, there'll be more information made available to you all as well as to the public as we start to kind of proceed in moving forward with those in a bit more detail. But we just started work on those in the last 2 weeks. Again, we know where the focus is right now, but we also know relatively soon, hopefully, we'll be in a position where we'll be starting to figure out how we reopen for business and how we support the recovery efforts that are going on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for that question, Vice Mayor. It was that's important to know, and I think I'm pleased with the way we're headed in that direction. Let me ask Ms. Cowell, can you tell us how are things in the city with regards to social distancing, and are we having any incidents of where more than 10 people are meeting? Have police been called in on anything of that matter?
There have been very few instances where someone has either disregarded the executive order offered or put forward by the governor, or where the physical distancing has not been able to be supported. In those instances, the approach has been first a form of education, where we make sure folks know that there is this executive order and what's allowed and not allowed. And in most of those instances, that has alleviated the issue or the problem. We have continued this past week. We continued with what we've been doing each weekend in having staff monitor the usage in our parks, on our athletic fields, and our courts. And with but only 1 or 2 exceptions, those have gone really well. Folks have really responded very positively to making sure that they're keeping the groupings quite small in number, as well as maintaining that physical distance that's required. So we've not really seen much in the way of problems. Now, I'll admit some of that has been helped by the actions that private companies have taken. The grocery stores and the big box retailers have, over the last week or so, taken their own steps to ensure that they're limiting the number of people entering buildings, as well as maintaining that physical separation in there. So that has helped as well. But no, we're by and large, we're seeing folks honor what the requirement is of the order, whether they're out recreating or whether they're operating one of the essential businesses.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other matters related to the COVID-19 pandemic disaster? Any questions or concerns any members of council may have? Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. I just wanted to let you all know I'm really impressed with the nonprofit community and the human services community, and how everyone has come together, being led by a couple of different groups, but very notably our United Way and our Community Foundation are leading some extraordinary efforts, not only to try and help families being impacted either by job loss, by income loss, and by other means, but also trying to help local businesses. And I expect within the next week, we'll see a really exciting announcement come out from those two groups with regards to some opportunities to help local business while also feeding families. So just wanted to give a shout out to the folks that are working really tirelessly right now to try and create solutions that are a little outside the box, but that help bring this community together even when we physically have to be separated. So just a lot of people working really hard and trying to figure out how to do all the things at one time, from homeschooling to working from home to creating positive change within our community. So, and I can say the same about this group of city council members as well. I know everybody has been really trying to think outside the box on how we can creatively problem solve during a time that none of us have ever experienced before. So I look forward to the announcement coming out later this week and to sharing that with everyone. I wish I could say something more about it today, but just big community-wide efforts. So thank you all for your support.
Yeah, and I did want to mention following up with what Ms. Davis just said as well, that Abby Hamilton with the United Way, the executive director, will actually be joining the mayor and vice mayor on Wednesday at the weekly press conference. So she'll be able to share more of those great things that Ms. Davis just mentioned that are going on inside our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And there's some great things that are going on in our community. And I'm going to ask Councilwoman Osborne to monitor those things that are going on. And at some point, when we have moved or progressed so far in dealing with this pandemic, we can identify those people. A lot of nonprofit people have stepped forward, doing some great things. I've heard Councilwoman Davis, and I think I've heard Vice Mayor Cobb and others say some things. There are a lot of people out there that's doing some tremendous things in the midst of this storm. And I would ask if you would, Ms. Osborne, to just sort of put that together, find that out, and let us know what's going on and what they do, and we can, I think at some point, recognize those citizens who are going beyond the call of duty and making things. Those citizens or those organizations that are doing that. We got a lot of good things going on in our community, and we do want to recognize them from council. So if you would do that, I would appreciate it so much.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we don't have any vacancies on boards or authorities. We haven't done any of that today. Is there anything else that needs to come before council? Okay. And so much as I always like to look over to Mr. Callahan, but I can't see him here. So if I don't hear him, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. And so much as there's no public hearings or items for discussion by the council, 7 o'clock session has been canceled. So, and if there being no further business to come forth in this meeting, this regular session of council is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.